Hey folks, George here. Today we're going to talk about two different articles that tackle ethics from a feminist perspective, specifically an interesting position within the feminist set of philosophies called care ethics. Care ethics. And we're going to visit two philosophers who present these ideas. One is Annette Baier, the other is Nell Noddings. The first article that we're going to talk about is Annette Baier's The Need for More Than Justice. What Annette Baier is saying, just right there in the title of the article, is not that she rejects justice, right? Or old masculine kinds of ethics. We'll see how she describes them as masculine later. She's not saying that she dismisses the masculine kinds of ethics that are prevalent. However, she's saying we need more than that. There has to be this feminine ethics that's taught, that's learned, that's embodied, in addition to the traditional Kantian or utilitarian flavors of ethics. So, she starts her article by suggesting that justice is one of many ethical concerns. Justice is important, but people like Immanuel Kant and others, and those who are focused on justice, they're only concerned with keeping society going. By the way, that's important. That is important for Baier. But there's more to life than that. There's more to life. There's more to morality than merely keeping society going. She says it leaves a cold and meaningless feeling inside of us, this cold, hard justice. She suggests, following Carol Gilligan, that we also need an ethics of care. An ethics of care. It's going to be more communitarian, more warm than cold, hard, utilitarian or Kantian notions of justice. For better or for worse, women are more attuned to this notion of care than men are. Now, here's what I love about Gilligan and Baier's ideas here. Why is it that we say, that she says, things like, oh, women know more about care than men do? Why is that? She says, who cares? Right? Some people will say, oh, is it more biological? Is there a biological inclination that makes women more caregiving than others, more tending towards caregiving than others, than men? Well, maybe. I don't know. Or is it social and cultural rules that have created women to be more caregiving than men? I don't know. And what I find interesting is, for Baier, it doesn't matter. Who cares? It just so happens that women are more attuned to caregiving. And that's the ethics that she wants to talk about today. The caregiving ethics. Is it biological? Is it cultural? So what? Who cares? I don't know. She doesn't know, right? I think my own personal take is that it's probably a complicated mesh. I think any talk about this would suggest that, nature versus nurture. It's always a very entangled sort of discussion. Is it nature that has caused this? Is it nurture that has caused this? Yeah, it's always very entangled, and it's hard to disentangle it. So right now, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter why women are more like this. It just is important that women are more like this. And what's even more important for people like Baier and the care ethicists is that care is really what we're talking about here. So let's focus on the care for a second, please. Again, this care ethics is going to be more communitarian and more warm than the cold ethics of justice. It's going to discuss our need for interdependence and relations and taking care of others and being taken care of ourselves. Yes? Traditional ethics, according to Baier, is too much about regulations. This is right, this is wrong. This is good, this is bad. She wants to talk about care. She wants to talk about communitarianism. She wants to talk about interdependence. She wants to talk about relations and relationships that we all need. One step that's very important for her is to acknowledge that we aren't all equal. That's essential to Mill's idea of utilitarianism. That's essential for Kant's idea. We are all equally rational, according to Kant. Mill would agree, by the way, that we are all equally rational. He'd also suggest, we are all equally striving for utility or for happiness. Baier is going to say, while equality is very important for justice, we're not, as it turns out, all equal. Right? We're not all equal. Now, ask any woman, and they'll confirm this for you right away. Right? And that's why Baier's care ethics is going to flesh this out from a feminist perspective. Women are more in tune with not being equal. How are people unequal from each other? How do some people find themselves in an unequal place? Well, two ways she wants to really stress. She wants to suggest that there is detachment that some people feel, number one, and there is a powerlessness that some people feel, number two. So this detachment, fear of detachment, and this powerlessness that is felt by women, but guess who else? Children. Oh, and by the way, we've all been children, haven't we? We've all been children. That's what I like about this, is that it really does speak to all of us. And it's only in recognizing this unequal nature of life, especially this fear of detachment, especially the powerlessness that some of us fear, that all of us felt as children especially, that we can understand that care is a necessary part of an ethical life, of moral considerations. We all need care, especially when you recognize the unequal nature of so many people. Instead, other colder notions of justice, where everybody's equal, well, they deal with care in a slightly different way, right? Baier suggests that a philosophy of equals is ill-equipped to deal with the caring nature of people who are really, in fact, unequal. Now, most of Western ethics is concerned with mutual respect of equal rights. Here's the problem. Care, love, relationships, where does that fit in? Doesn't seem to fit in at all anywhere here. By the way, equal rights are compatible with great misery, psychic sickness, social impoverishment. So Baier suggests people want more. There's more to life than justice. There's more to life than rights. Equal rights doesn't yield attachment or interconnection or interdependence. And Baier believes that those are important, essential parts of a human experience. That seems undeniable to me. Baier is going to challenge the notion of individualism in Western morality and ethics. Individualism. We are all individuals with individual human rights. Right? By the way, she says there's more to ethics than justice, so she accepts all those things, but there is more. Here's the challenge that she poses. Individualism can be isolating and alienating. In fact, we are actually individuals who are the result of interdependence from others, with others. We have so many interdependencies. Think about why you're here right now. Think about why I'm here right now. I depended upon my parents. I depended on my mother loving me. I depended not just on my parents, my siblings. I depended upon all the people who taught me, who encouraged me, who pushed me. I depend on the relationships that I have at work. Right now, some of you might really hate your jobs. Don't tell anybody I said this, but I actually like my job. and I love the people I work with. By the way, isn't that why I probably like my job? Because of the people I work with. Right? The relationships. It's not just about giving me the pay that I deserve. It is about the nurturing environment that I have. Don't people who say that they love their jobs, they love the community there. They love having relationships at work. It's not just about the pay. By the way, talking about justice and getting your just pay. How many people get significant pay, earn significant pay, and still dislike their jobs? We are interdependent people. That is the human experience. We don't want the autonomy that Kant describes. We want to be with others. By the way, all this talk of individualism is from that patriarchal past. That is the foundation of Western ethics that talks about things like justice. Yeah, think about so many of the philosophers that we've discussed. Men. Kant, Immanuel Kant, a man. John Stuart Mill, a man, talking about utility and ethics. What's interesting is we won't talk about it here too much, for better or for worse, but there is a lot of contemporary discussion about how much John Stuart Mill was influenced and had help from his wife, Harriet Taylor Mill. Yeah, that's a different discussion. Aristotle gives us his virtue ethics, but from his masculine perspective in ancient Greece. What's Baier's point with all this? We haven't heard enough women's voices contributing interesting philosophical insights here. And sure enough, we talk so much and focus so much about justice and right and wrong. And in doing so, we've ignored so much about what is a good life. Yeah? And aren't relationships part of a good life? Isn't caring for others part of a good life? And isn't being cared for by others part of a good life? That is the contribution that care ethics is bringing to the table here. By the way, Baier does acknowledge that this patriarchal notions of justice do address problems of how to care for others and the unequal and the powerless in society. But the problem with that, according to Baier, is that it masks the hierarchical relationships, the hierarchical dynamics of society. Whereas Baier's care ethics acknowledges the hierarchies in society. It acknowledges that we are not equal. And in acknowledging that we're not equal, doesn't that reveal and allow us to better address the inequalities? That's her point, too. In acknowledging the unequal aspects in our society, the hierarchical nature of our society, we can better address those who are powerless, those who are suffering in our society, those who are less capable, let's say, of participating in this striving for equal rights. Consider care ethics for a second, where all those hierarchical differences are laid out clear as day, right? There is a hierarchical, unequal relationship between a parent and a child, a mother and a child. There are unequal dynamics between a doctor and a patient. There are unequal dynamics in school and in education between a teacher and a student. When we see these unequalnesses laid out clearly, we can better address them and better address them in a caring way. By the way, these unequal relationships that she just mentioned, those are necessary to a flourishing and rich life, aren't they? We've all been in that unequal position. We've all been sick. We've all been children. We've all been students. Maybe we haven't been students in the formal way, but we've all looked up to others to say, teach me. And when you acknowledge this, then you could address it in a caring way. give you a brief anecdote really quick. Please let me go on a little divergent path here for a second. I still wrestle with this stuff in my personal life. As a teacher, I know that there's these hierarchical dynamics. I know that I'm the teacher and the students are below me. And in doing so, I sometimes comment upon students' ideas. And I say things like, well, you need to correct this. This is wrong. This is a misunderstanding. You need to organize your paper in a different way. For better or for worse, sometimes I say these things in mean ways, in uncaring ways. And I'm very grateful to have had people call me out for that. Students who said, wait a second, George, you were mean here. When really, I don't want to be mean. I promise you. Some of my students will disagree. But I don't want to be mean. But I don't realize that due to these unequal power dynamics, that it does come off as mean sometimes. I don't literally call people stupid. I don't think so. But I do maybe come off in a mean way. But that's not what I want at all. What I really want to do is support students and help care for them in their intellectual pursuits and help them learn this kind of material. And that's exactly Baier's point. Don't be mean. Be caring. Be caring. Recognize the caring nature. Furthermore, a lot of that talk of justice and equal rights requires and depends on this notion of free choice. God bless free choice, right? Baier would agree. Except Baier would also point out that so much of what makes us who we are, so much of what makes me who I am, was not the subject of free choice. I didn't choose my parents. I didn't choose the nation to be raised in. I didn't choose the schools to go to. I didn't choose who my teachers were in youth. I didn't choose who my coaches were. So much of that is not the function of choice. We didn't choose our most loving relationships. Certainly childhood and looking at childhood is so important for Baier's philosophy. How do we raise children? How are we to raise children? That's exactly Baier's point. We've all been children. How are we going to address that aspect of life? Especially for those of us who work with children, who live with children, who are raising children. Thus, emotion is going to be a central ethical concern for care ethicists. Paying attention to emotion, paying attention to empathy, being a good brother, being a good mother, being a good family member, loving children is just as important in ethics as teaching them to be reasonable. Yes, we want children to be reasonable. I want to teach them that. But guess what else? Sometimes just loving your child is important too, isn't it? Well, certainly Baier thinks so. And I hope that a lot of this discussion has convinced you too, that this kind of loving emotion, this caring emotion, these focus on caring relationships is so important. And so, wouldn't the ideal ethics be a marriage, Baier says, between that cold, hard, masculine notions of justice, but also these warm, soft, emotional concerns of care ethicists? And to bring these two ideas together, doesn't that contribute to a more complete, more caring, more fulfilled, good life? Doesn't including notions of empathy, responsibility, moral initiative, diplomacy, all contribute to a more caring community? And by the way, wouldn't this more caring community, if not just women did this, but if men learned it too? if men learned it too? Wouldn't this be a nicer society? Wouldn't that be a more fulfilling life? Isn't it okay for men to be a little bit more motherly or caring to their children? That's Bear's point. I hope she's convinced you of that. Next time we'll talk about Nell Noddings and what she has to add to these ideas. Bye-bye.